welcome back to another edition of the Zig Zone. I'm your host, Holden Rook, here from the Falcon Media Sports Network, the only show taking you through everything going on in the world of Bowling Green Falcon athletics. I'm joined here today by actually our two executives and two very talented sports analysts of Bowling Green Sports. First, our sports content director, Lucas Kleinmeyer. How are we doing, Lucas?
Indecisive. I think good and bad. I don't know how to feel personally with this weekend, but I'm happy I'm here.
A lot going on for sure, and certainly second right-hand man to Lucas, more of a team really, but Tyler Kavlitz, our production director for Falcon Media Sports Network. How you doing, Tyler?
Well, I got half a voice, as you can tell, but happy to be here today. And
Why is that, Tyler?
We'll just get into that. But, when you're on top of a press box in Athens, Ohio, next to music blaring for 6 hours straight, and you have to work around some technical difficulties to get a broadcast off, your voice kind of goes with it at the same time. So, hey, but we got through it. I'm still here. I can still kind of talk, I think. Hopefully.
No, I can't speak for well, I could speak for myself, but for other people that have been on the show before, they're probably very happy that you don't really have a voice.
I don't know how to feel about that. Like, that's a very
that one teed up before we even started.
That's something I'd expect to come from that chair to the right of Holden from Ben Korak.
I know. I know. We should be more of a team. My bad. Even though he kind of just called you Robin to my Batman.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
I said more.
I don't think that's
Robin's
true.
Not bad.
Robin's awesome.
I tried to elevate him. I didn't want to put him down
today.
on sidekick. I tried to elevate him. You're changing my words. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm just here.
Yeah, tiring weekend for those making the football trip to Athens. Beware that Athens sun. They should say. If they don't, they should.
We got the sunburn going on because of that.
The half the face sunburn. Yeah, great stuff there. Well, there's a lot that's gone really well and a lot that's gone not very well in the past week of Bowling Green athletics. We're going to open up with what everybody's wondering about football. Before we do, we're going to step away just briefly for station identification. And when we come back, we're going to talk about everything that went down as Bowling Green opened MAC play in Athens against the Ohio Bobcats. You're still listening to the Zig Zone on WBGU 88.1 FM.
You are listening to Falcon Media Sports Network coverage on WBGU 88.1 FM in Bowling Green, Ohio.
We're back here on the Zig Zone, Holden Rook, joined by Tyler Kavlitz and Lucas Kleinmeyer. And in a football game, a MAC opener, Bowling Green hot team, probably one of the most talked about in the MAC with first-year coach Eddie George. And the Ohio Bobcats, despite playing with a new coach this year, probably one of the favorites, probably the odds-on favorite to win the MAC, and the reigning MAC champion returning their star quarterback. You'd expect a close game. And if I were to tell you that Ohio had 3 turnovers and slightly less time of possession than the Falcons, you might think that the Falcons came away with the victory there and were able to capitalize. But that's just not what we saw. So I just want to start and just step back. The Bobcats dropped the Falcons 35-20. What's your, Tyler, you go first. What's your gut just takeaway from this game?
I didn't expect it to be a game that Bowling Green would win going into it. I'll put that out there. Being at the game and watching it develop, I'm not saying it's a game Bowling Green should have won, but there was a chance for them to win it. They had the opportunities. Like you said, Ohio is one of the best time of possession teams in the MAC. BG beat them in that category. You forced 3 turnovers. I really might be a hot take. Don't think Parker Navarro played his best game, especially in the passing department. He was great on the ground as always. I think he looked a little human out there at times. Had a bad turnover in particular. But Bowling Green just didn't do enough offensively, especially in the pass game. We'll get to it to win the game. They committed way too many, and Eddie George talked about it, way too many self-inflicted errors on defense, on offense, in terms of penalties, in terms of missed coverages, in terms of missed opportunities, in terms of bad reads. They hurt themselves more than Ohio beat them, I believe, in that game. And it's really a missed opportunity to get a win against a team that would be huge if you're going to try to compete for a MAC championship. I don't think it affects their odds at a bowl game appearance that much. but I think it does affect them if you're looking in the grand scheme of it, if you're expecting this team to be able to compete for a MAC championship. I also think, and I assume we're going to talk about this more as well, it's a good barometer for where this Bowling Green team is right now. It's a good measuring stick of, they aren't one of the top 2 teams in the MAC yet. And it's kind of a little bit of a wake-up call of, hey, all the excitement around the program, they still have some work to do. They still have room to grow for sure. I think it's just a good little wake-up call about halfway through the season that they still have a long ways to go if you want this team to compete for a MAC championship.
Absolutely. And I really think, I've said this before, and I think we've talked about this a lot, going into the season, I don't know that the expectation necessarily even should have been, hey, we are going to make a bowl game. But I don't think tomorrow showed you anything that says that that's not completely in play. I mean, nobody who's watched both of these teams this year should have circled this as one of the games they win to get to that sweet, that golden number of 6 wins. So in the quest for a bowl game, I don't think that's truly much of a deterrent at all. And for as late into the game as the Falcons were able to compete, I mean, I don't think it's I don't think it's the death knell for that team at all.
That's why I think the loss hurts more, especially for if you talk to anybody on that team and you heard it in the press conferences afterwards, because they held with them that long, because they were close there. They were knocking on the door the entire game, and they just committed too many self-inflicted errors, self-inflicted mistakes that prevented them from being able to close that gap and really make it a very competitive matchup instead of just a close matchup.
Yeah, I mean, going into the half, you've got a 1-possession game. Yeah. Ohio scores a touchdown. That scoreless third quarter really felt like it was when the game was put away, to be completely honest. Although, being there, it felt like the Falcons had a chance the whole time. But, I mean, it definitely felt more out of reach after that third quarter. But even so, I mean, again, you look at what Ohio did in the MAC last year. You look at how successful they've been this year. I mean, beating West Virginia at home, competing against...
Well, and also, that stadium's the toughest place to play in the MAC. They're now, since 2022, 20-1 at Peden Stadium. 20-1. Wow. They beat West Virginia there this year. That is a tough place to play. So that just adds on to it of... You had a chance to take down that team if you had less errors, if you had less mistakes, and you played a little tighter. You had a real chance to take down that team, and they just hurt themselves too much and prevented themselves from doing it. But you got to give credit to Ohio, too. They did enough to get the win. They looked like one of the top teams in the MAC. They looked like the real deal. But, I mean, that's a very tough place to play.
Yeah, I think just building off what Tyler said, kind of his first statement is kind of like my real takeaway. I think it's a really simple takeaway, honestly, was just Ohio just capitalized on the mistakes. Yeah. I think you can really just, some games you can say, well, if this happened, this would have been different, or this, or you can list kind of a bunch of reasons why you lost the game. I really think this game just came down to turnovers. And when you play, in my opinion, the best team in the MAC, and I think for a lot of people, the odds-on favorite to win the MAC this year, you can't turn the ball over, especially in the context of the game and the times they do it. I know we'll talk more about Drew Pine and his turnovers, but just the turnovers in this game and overall just the mistakes that they happen during the games, what down they happened on, where they were at on the field. You just can't do that. And you can't do it against a really good team like Ohio and expect to win, especially in a place, in a stadium like Tyler mentioned, that they've won 20 of the last 21 games. You just can't do it.
I think it goes deeper, too, than just winning the turnover battle, because in a game where a team only loses the turnover battle by a +1 differential, that's not a significant margin sometimes. Yeah. But the difference is that Ohio was more consistently able to capitalize. Mm-hmm. I mean, the first turnover gave me shades of homecoming 2 years ago because it was an interception returned for 6.
Yeah, the thing, though, that I would say I'm more concerned about, I guess, long-term, because I agree with both of you, what you mentioned. I don't think this is going to change you whether or not you make a bowl game or not, or, it might affect maybe not if you can get the MAC championship game, depending on how the rest unfolds, but defensively, I'm a little concerned, just long-term, especially against these other top teams in the MAC, like Toledo. Central's come alive a little bit in the past couple games as well. Running the ball, Ohio did really well against us, just on the ground. Parker Navarro, also really good run, 11 carries, 66 yards, 2 touchdowns as well. That is a little bit more concerning for me, at least in the future, is just, without Dorian Pringle now, one of your key defensive players, especially a bunch of other kind of new guys this year. I'm worried. I am worried about how defensive they're going to hold up.
And it's not just Pringle anymore. Keon Washington.
Yeah.
We don't know how long, but it is a lower leg injury for him, according to Eddie George. So we'll have to wait to see how long he's out. And we probably won't have an update for another week plus, because it's highly unlikely they'll release any of that, and there's no press conference this week. So, that's another huge one. He was great during that game when he was in the game at corner. You also have seen Kyle Pascal in a couple games get beat up. He left the game. It didn't look like anything serious for him. I think it was more of a cramp thing. But you've seen him get banged up because he's having to do more. Gideon Lampront's now stepped up into a bigger role. And now he's the middle linebacker. He's playing a little bit out of position. So like you said, these injuries are causing a little bit of havoc already.
Yeah, and they've had players like Miles Bradley played well. Yesterday, he stepped up, and that's someone that's been on the team. But when you get into these MAC games, when you get into November, and inevitably there's going to be a game where it's going to be low scoring because it's just how these MAC games unfold, and your defense is going to need to make a stop. With all these injuries and just how they are.
And also, something else that concerns me with the defense, which I don't think has been a bad defensive unit, they're middle of the pack right now in all the MAC stats. I don't think that really paints the whole picture of the defense. I think they've been better than that. But they have at least one big blown coverage play in the back end of the defense each game. It led to a touchdown in the Ohio game to the nation's leading receiver for them. They have one of those every single game, and I know we'll have a soundbite that we'll play a little later on from Eddie George, him kind of talking about he's constantly talking about the same mistakes over and over and over again. It's just where this team is at right now. It's a lot of young guys. It's a lot of new guys on this team. He got hired late in the process, had to bring, and it's just the situation he was in. Scott Loeffler left late in the process of everything. He had to put together a roster very quickly. So making them all play together as a cohesive unit isn't always the easiest thing.
And if you think about in those other 2 losses against Cincinnati and Louisville, how many big plays did they give up? Especially in that Cincinnati game. They lost all the explosive plays in that game. So that's been a common factor in all 3 of these losses.
And it's just that 1 or 2 a game, usually. That one's a little bit of an exception, but the other games, you saw it against Lafayette.
Yeah.
They let up a big play or 2 in that game, too, and it's usually the busted coverage, the blown coverage that you really don't have any explanation for except it was just a broken play.
Yep.
Well, and another kind of a pet peeve of mine with any defense, and especially something that I think this unit is only more and more inclined to encounter with the injuries that they're piling up, is somehow in the previous regime with Scott Loeffler and now, you might expect some differences. There's been a routine problem with Bowling Green defenses with keeping contain on the quarterback. That's been a huge issue for a number of years now. I really think back to a large part of the loss against Old Dominion last year came from the quarterback, escaping and making plays on the ground, to just extend those drives and keep them alive in places where the others might have been.
The bowl game years ago back was in New Mexico State.
Yeah.
That's how they ended the game, was their quarterback just ran from.
And I think what you're looking at right now is because of the injuries. If you don't have Dorian Pringle, it makes it that much harder because Dorian Pringle would be one of those guys that you could task with being that quarterback spy. Hey, you're going to cover this box. You're going to keep an eye on Navarro. You don't have that right now. Your linebacker room is thinner because you have to move Lampron from the outside position to the Mike position. Now he has to run that whole unit. It's just so much harder to contain Navarro that you're now putting him on one-on-one matchups with guys like MJ Cannon. No disrespect to MJ Cannon, but it's tough for an undersized quarterback to contain a quarterback like Parker Navarro that runs like a running back.
Yeah, and I think in the long-term outlook for the team, there's a little bit of silver lining in that I don't think they're going to face another quarterback who's as proficient on the ground as Navarro, even close. I think he's clearly the class of the MAC.
He's a special player in the MAC.
But yeah, And those kinds of plays breaking down to quarterbacks being able to, get creative and extend the plays. Like, I feel like those are always, when you have a quarterback who's got, good chemistry with any of their pass catchers, like that's where we see a lot more of those broken plays too. And that, the second the play takes more than, the first, 3-4 seconds, whatever, the quarterback's buying time, it's like you start to sweat, especially with a depleted defensive unit. I do want to play that clip from Eddie George talking about mistakes with the team, because I do think that mistakes more than anything were the story of yesterday's game in Ohio. So let's take a listen.
2 delay of games to start drives. That's not on the kids. That's on us. That's on me. That's unacceptable. And that can't happen. Been in this profession too long for that to happen. So we shot ourselves collectively again in the foot. But the thing that I've seen, we were able to move the ball at times, put ourselves in position to win it, pull with an 8. But you have to find ways to score. And I told the team this. I said, listen, this is who we are right now. And in order to become champions, in order to become great, you have to take ownership in the fact that we're just not a very good football team when we make mistakes like this. So we've got to change that. We've got to get better. There's a chance we could probably see this team down the line, but that's not near or there. We got to focus on next week, the bye week, get better, be critical of ourselves. The greatest opponent right now is ourselves. And we got to figure that out the next 2 weeks before we play our next opponent. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Again, just disappointed in the fact that I'm saying the same things over and over again, but that's where we are right now. That's where I got to meet this team. That's where I got to meet our staff. That's where I got to meet myself. I got to raise that level of standard. So today's loss really falls on my shoulders.
Coach, the second half, they were able to get to the quarterbacks really effectively. What did they change anything schematically defensively? What after the first half, just what was maybe the difference in that regard?
Oh man, they ran a couple twists we didn't pick up, stuff that we saw in practice, but for whatever reason didn't recognize it in the game. A couple guys ran free. Now a few of them I didn't have a chance to look at it, so I can't really give you an intelligent answer other than the fact that I was surprised that they were able to get to Drew that way. And for a quarterback that's trying to find his confidence, that doesn't bode well. He played hurt, got his ankle got tweaked a little bit. Of course, he threw the early interception, but settled back down and put a drive together. But for the most part, I have to go back and look at the film to see exactly why guys are running free.
I think there's a lot of accountability there from Coach George. I mean, I think that bodes well. It's not pointing to, this team is just better than us. It's not any of that. Like we said, Bowling Green competed throughout that whole game, but you can't have those self-inflicted wounds. And I think it inspires a lot of optimism for me about the team that he's aware of that. But I want to take that a step further than where we have, because in the interest of talking about mistakes and telling the picture of the whole game, we have to address the elephant in the room. No team can compete in this conference, or probably most conferences at the D1 level, if the quarterback play is not above the level that it was against Ohio yesterday. I mean,
if Bowling Green right now had a quarterback like Cam Worth still on the roster, that was a quarterback that is ready, that knows the playbook enough and that is experienced enough to be able to manage a game, Drew Pine would be in the consideration to be benched right now. They're not in that situation. It's obvious that Lucien Anderson III is not ready if he has not been getting more time under center. Drew Pine, over the past 2 weeks, is probably the most atrocious quarterbacking that Bowling Green has had since before Matt McDonald. I mean, we just have to look at it that way. Like, it is the worst 2-week span of a quarterback for Bowling Green since before the final year of Matt McDonald.
No,
I don't think that's crazy to say at all.
Last week we talked about the quarterback play, to the point in the season against Louisville.
Yeah.
And, we pointed to things such as the level of competition that you're playing, your ACC and Big 12 teams. I mean, Louisville and Cincinnati, good teams by all rights. They've seen good results against other teams too. You expect some of those things in those situations, but when you're playing against a team that's not out of the realm of what you should be able to compete with, and you're looking at a guy who's had experience on much bigger stages.
Multiple schools.
Looking into the numbers, I'm not saying he's been flashy, but teams with how good was a Notre Dame team that a quarterback who's playing at this level was able to beat a number 4 Clemson years back?
Well, I will say there's a reason he's not with Notre Dame anymore.
Well,
there's a reason he's not Missouri anymore.
Well, I mean, he wasn't the starter to begin with there either.
No.
But
there's a reason that he has hopped around to make it to Bowling Green. It's because he has not played it well enough to maintain at that level.
Well, and the troubling thing to me is going into the season, I think a lot of the chatter that I heard and, even saw online, Bowling Green football followers and MAC football followers, and even some Notre Dame fans, is, parallel to how we felt going into Connor Bazelak taking the reins a little bit. You've got a guy who's got, he's an older guy. He's got, D1 experience at multiple stops, including Missouri, coincidence, both of them there. I feel like Connor granted, he had Harold Fannin Jr., one of the best tight end seasons of all time. I'm not going to discount that. He ran the ball through Harold Fannin a lot, too. I'm not even saying that the receiving core is the deepest position group at all on this Bowling Green roster right now, but just in terms of other controllable things, the touch on screen passes and or passes into the flat, that short 5 to 10, that short to intermediate accuracy, and even just awareness and footwork in the pocket, not even rolling out or creating, just moving out, climbing up in the pocket, navigating the pocket. I feel like the level of play that we saw from Connor Bazelak over his time here, even when often, criticized and kind of panned, was substantially head and shoulders above the quarterback play we've seen this year.
I never understood a lot of the criticism against Bazelak. Almost set the completion percentage record, and albeit he had Harold Fannin Jr., almost set the completion percentage record for our program, led the MAC in that category, didn't turn the ball over.
And, I'll say, even you look at a game like Texas A&M. That was a good team last year. They're a strong team this year, already off to a good start. Playing in College Station, one of the toughest environments. It's one of the 4 biggest stadiums in the country.
Yep.
And Bowling Green competed down to the wire. Again, I'm not saying that this team has the talent the last year's does. I'm not saying that at all. But Connor Bazelak, pretty clean of turnovers more often than not. Had a couple picks late in the game. I would almost rather see the picks look like that, because I don't think Connor Bazelak, ever stopped playing with the same demeanor and confidence, frankly.
No.
And that's what's concerning about what Eddie George said, is that he is a quarterback trying to find his confidence.
And
he admitted that right now, Drew does not have the confidence that he needs to have to operate this position. I have a couple numbers for you. First 3 games of the season, Pine completed 67% of his pass attempts, 529 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Solid numbers. Nothing earth-shattering, but nothing terrible. Past 2 games, 56.8% completion percentage, 301 yards in 2 games. In 2 games. 2 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. 5 interceptions in 2 games.
Lucas, you were here last week, and we talked about the kind of condition over the next couple weeks. I think BG faces its 2 biggest MAC tests of the year right away. Yeah. We've got Ohio yesterday. We saw how that went.
Without question, yeah.
There's a bye week, and then hosting Toledo, the Battle of I-75. Everybody knows the stakes of that game. And I think kind of the consensus in the room was if you got 2 more picks than touchdowns and we're just losing, you start to call that into question, and we're already over double that.
So I'll be honest, I'm kind of confused, or I don't know how to feel. I'll preface it by this. Okay, so Lafayette, I didn't think he played well, but a lot of people, what they said was, it's his first game. He's still learning.
I was one of those people.
Yeah, rushing. We had a big game rushing. It was a big game rushing, running the ball. Lafayette kind of beat themselves up that game. He didn't win the game, but he didn't lose the game. He kind of just controlled the game, was a facilitator, which is what you want your quarterback to be. And then you go to Cincinnati, and I thought first half he really, really struggled, and then second half I honestly thought he actually played well. I thought he picked up a bit, and if you look at his numbers, I think his numbers were fine. And then you go to Liberty. Okay, I thought he did good, fine.
Enough to win.
Enough to win, right? So chalk it up with a win. But then what Tyler mentioned, these last two games, Louisville and then Ohio, he looks like a completely different quarterback than the first two games, the first game and a half of Lafayette, Cincinnati. You're getting this. You're getting up, down, down, up. That's not what I was expecting. That's what people want from your quarterback. You want him to be constantly going up because he is new. He doesn't know the playbook yet. He had to learn a whole new system. He's learning the MAC. He's learning Bowling Green. And you're getting up and down charts. You're getting inconsistency. And that is the worst thing you could get from the most important position on the field. They are the facilitator, and they cannot turn the ball over and be the reason why you lose. You cannot give the best team in the MAC 7 points right off the bat in the game and expect to win. You just can't do it. You can't. You're not. Whether it's a regular season MAC game, especially if it's a championship game or a bowl game, it's just not going to happen at any level. Doesn't matter if it's a MAC, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, ACC. Doesn't matter. So, and we kind of mentioned. I think we talked about this last week as well. He bounced around a couple of places. Like Notre Dame, Missouri. There's a reason for that.
Yep. And
usually, it's not a good reason. It could be injuries, and he's fought through some injuries. It could be confidence. It could be not a cultural fit. It could be, unhappiness personally. Whatever it could be. But even when you look for a job, when people are hiring, if you've gone to multiple places within like a couple years, it's usually a big red flag. There's something up with that, and I don't know. I'm not gonna act like I know what it is because I don't. It could be both on the field, off the field. I don't know, but the last two games have been really, really bad. And I think with what Eddie George said, that he's a quarterback trying to find his confidence 5 games into the year and your first conference game. It's not a good look. And I hope this bye week they use it with Pine to work with him, get his confidence built, because you're coming against Toledo, which is going to be a monstrous game here with Eddie George's first Battle of I-75 at the Deloitte. Could be sold out. We don't know, but there's going to be a lot of people there.
It's going to be close.
It's going to be on a Saturday, so it's not midweek action like we've seen in previous years. That is a huge, huge game, and he's a guy that's been in big games in previous schools before. This is we'll give it a couple weeks until the match gets closer, but that is a monstrous game, not for just the team, but for Pine to just evaluate, see how he does, because there's not going to be a bigger game this season besides the game on the 11th outside of the MAC championship game.
I know we have another soundbite from Eddie coming up about Pine, but one thing I'll say in defense of Drew is, from the sense that I get, he hasn't lost the locker room at all. Everyone that you talk to on that team seems to respect Drew and have a level of respect for him. Chris McMillan, we talked to him post-game. He was asked about Drew Pine and his performance and all of that, and he goes, he's a dog. I don't care exactly what he did today. He's a dog. He's going to bounce back. Is summarizing what Chris McMillan said. So this team still trusts Drew. They still back Drew,
which is like the biggest thing.
It is. That's big. It's just kind of up to him. He needs to level up that play if this team's going to go somewhere, or else if you have, and I'll say this, if you have another game like that against Toledo,
oh man,
there's going to be a lot of pressure on Eddie to get Lucian some more time.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see more Lucian against Toledo. I think Drew's banged up. He's going to have a week off, but he's still banged up.
Mm-hmm.
Lucian's got to know the playbook by now. He's going to have some sort of understanding of this offense by now. We've been seeing him a little more in the past couple weeks. And you can tell he's still not fully ready. I mean, the drive that he came in for Drew when he was in the medical tent, he got blown up the middle by a linebacker that he did not see. And strip fumble, lost the ball. Nasty play, just never saw him. That's the kind of awareness thing that tells you Lucian isn't ready. Yeah, he wasn't expecting to go into that game at that point. But yeah, he also didn't see a linebacker barreling down right in front of him. But, I mean, if Drew plays like he did against Ohio, against Toledo, there's going to be a lot of pressure
It'll be bad. It'll
on
be
this
really
program.
bad. And I think this could honestly be, this 2-week game stretch could be his low point in the year. And, Toledo comes by, he could just take off from
This
there.
is why I think the bye week right now is a great
it's
point.
a really good time for him personally and for the team as well. But, this could just be a low point. And by Toledo through the rest of the MAC schedule, he just might be just solid. Or he might just gradually get better every game. Like we saw, in my opinion, on Connor Bays last year, who was just good throughout the entire year outside of a couple moments. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see, but definitely not a good past couple weeks for Pine.
Yeah, more I want to say on this after, but first let's listen to what Eddie George had to say about his quarterback.
Drew Pine, 3 more interceptions. What's your message to him?
To stay positive. The first one was a tip pick six. The second one was not a good read. That was bad interception. The ball shouldn't have gone out that way. I felt, I had to go back and look at the film, but we probably could have ran it or found a different option, but that was not a good decision on his behalf. The last one, I thought it was trapped. Clearly, we're in throwing mode, so it's there. But he's got to stay positive with it, and I think we have to figure out, what he does best, and not probably put him in those situations to where he can throw interceptions. Too many tip balls, a lot of tip balls, and we got to figure that out. And we can't expect him to execute in those situations if we're constantly seeing tip balls. That's on us. It's on coaching. So I'm going to figure that out.
Again, I think watching the Falcon offense, a fairly effective running game, a passing game that is being a little bit hindered by quarterback play, and also, I mean, to be honest, hasn't felt super inspired through this point in the schedule.
I think there's something schematically with the passing game that needs to change. I think part of what he's talking about, the tip balls there, is due to how the offense is running. Well, if Drew's going to drop back and pass it into the flat or do a bubble screen every play, of course the defense is going to expect that. Of course they're going to put their hands up because you're throwing a ball on a straight line. You're not launching on an angle downfield where it's harder to block at the line. Drew's not a big guy. I think we list him at 6 foot. That's going to happen. If you remember, I'm a Cleveland fan. I remember Baker when he was in Cleveland. A huge thing was he got a lot of balls batted down. He's like 6 foot. He's not a huge quarterback. That's going to happen, especially if you're going a lot of screens and a lot of flat routes and a lot of slant routes. Why is R.J. Garcia not downfield more? He was at Kansas State. He's a speedster. Why is he not downfield more as the X? Where is Finn Hogan in the red zone? Wide receivers do not have a touchdown catch this year. What happened to Jacob Harris last week? Jacob Harris was emerging as like the top offensive target the past 2 weeks. His only 2 targets are in the fourth quarter. Cool. Jaron Johnson got a catch, extended his catch streak, second longest in the nation. Where else was he the whole game? It was Finn Hogan and R.J. Garcia. Where was the rest of the offense against Ohio? But then where was Finn Hogan and R.J. Garcia the past couple weeks in the game plan? It hasn't made much sense. It's been varying game by game, like more than you would think just game plan. It's like Jacob Harris wasn't anywhere to be found until the fourth quarter, which did not make any sense at all. I think there's something fundamentally with the passing game. I think the running game's getting there. The running game looked good against Ohio. It looked probably the best it has since the Lafayette game. What is going on with the passing game? I think it is more than Drew. I think Drew's a lot of it, but I think it's more than Drew. I think it has to do some sort of with the scheme.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I come back to early down situations, and we're seeing the same couple of different, plays where we're just dumping off to the flat. And I mean, it's just not
like.
It's
why do you
not
think
dynamic.
Balls are getting bad at the line? It's because you're thrown into the flat every 2 passes.
And then
if you're doing that every game, defenses are going to read that on the film, and they're going to say, they're going to just screen pass, forward pass, throw in. I mean, that's what they do because we don't have a consistent deep threat. I think we do have with R.J. Garcia, but he's not downfield ever. So defense are going to read that more.
And you saw after Drew's second interception, the one that Eddie talked about, and if you didn't see it, he was rolling out to the right side. had a slight window in the end zone, but it was way before he took the shot. Threw a pass down late. It was double teamed at that time. He threw behind his wide receiver in the end zone. It was an atrocious read. It was a very bad interception. After that affected him mentally. It affected him confidence-wise. There was numerous plays where you could see he pumped. He wanted to take a deep shot and didn't. He'd go 2 or 3 fakes and then dump it off. He got too hesitant because he's not used to taking those deep shots with this offense. And maybe some of that is because of how late he got here and how late the team worked together. Maybe the offense isn't fully opened up. I'm not sure of that, but I'll leave that on the table as a possibility. Nonetheless, the offense, especially the passing game, just is not dynamic enough right now. It is too readable. It's too easily beatable by defenses. And if we think that Toledo, with their coach, with their coaching staff, with that roster...
2 weeks to prep. They're bye week 2.
Yeah. If you think they're not going to be prepared for what this offense has been so far this year, it's going to be a rough matchup if you come with the same offensive game plan passing-wise that you've been running the past 2 weeks.
I would agree with you, too. I mean, I think a lot of it might be just how late everyone just got together. I mean, just to prepare for the season. But we're going to be midway through the season after Toledo. Yeah. At some point, when are you going to start seeing how this offense truly is going to be without... using that maybe it's just early season stuff, or like maybe they just got together. At some point, we got to really start seeing the real offense stand up.
It just baffles me that a wide receiver does not have a touchdown.
That's crazy. Almost midway through the season. It baffles
me. It doesn't feel real.
And that's crazy. Part of the point, too, where I know it doesn't fall all on his shoulders, but when you've got a group that, isn't completely used to each other yet, and you're seeing these struggles early on, he's a 6th-year guy.
This is also just the nature of playing quarterback. You're going to get all the praise when you win and things go right. When you lose your rival or you lose any game, you're going to be the first one that gets blamed on social media or talking with people. It's just that's just the nature of the position. It's a very high pressure position. Just the way it is.
So RJ Garcia is now the team's leading receiver after the game. 168 yards this season on 17 receptions.
Yeah.
Only 2 of your top 4 receivers in terms of receptions or yards are wide receivers. RJ Garcia, the second, and Finn Hogan, 17 for 168, 11 for 165 respectively. Jaron Johnson, 12 for 164. Kadarius Roberts, a running back, 15 for 100. And then after that, it's Jacob Harris and Markel Porter. You have 2 wide receivers and then 4 straight tight ends or running backs in your receiving leaderboards. That's because they check down the ball every 5th play.
Yep.
It's because outside of RJ and Finn Hogan, your next leading receiver is Reese Stocksdale? No offense to Reese Stocksdale,
former Buckeye.
He has 4 receptions this year.
Yeah.
That's less than a reception a game.
Yeah.
It is just so locked in on those 2 guys that if defenses can lock down on them, you have your tight ends and your running backs left to go.
Yep. And I think another dilemma. I mean, Eddie's doing the head coach thing. He's taking a lot of responsibility. I think there's a very realistic conversation to have. I mean, Eddie George and all of the offensive staff, they know what they have in the quarterback room. As much as the offense may be limiting, the designs may be limiting, some of the players. I mean, there's absolutely room for the opposite to be true. I mean, on some level, you're not gonna call Josh Allen plays when you have Mike Glennon at quarterback.
Well, I did not expect Mike Glenn's going to be brought up on the Zig Zone on September 28th, 2025, but here we are.
2002. But you know what I'm saying? I mean, when you know what players you have, you're gonna you're gonna design and call things that you think are within their skill set, because you can't ask them to do more than and I mean, you can misjudge, you can be wrong, but you can't ask them to do more than they're capable of on some level. And so I do have to wonder if that goes into why we see such a static and frankly uninspired conservative offense. Yeah. And We've got one more bite. We're gonna play it from Eddie, but before we do, on the Drew Pine topic, I want to leave it at this, or give it to you one more time. See your thoughts. I think we've seen one above-average half of football from Drew Pine, and it came in a game that was already out of reach.
Came in garbage time
by midway through the second quarter against Cincinnati.
Yeah, I would agree.
That's
I would agree.
Pretty troubling to me.
Yeah, out of what we're talking 10 halves this season already.
And as much as you can point to, these offensive things, are they scheming based on what he can do? Are they limiting him? Just the same. I mean, you can attribute to that success to the kind of defense that Cincinnati's playing. You get up by a couple scores. I don't think it's ridiculous to say that your defensive philosophy or approach is going to change, especially when you've been, pretty much shutting a team down in the first half.
Yeah. Well, here's the other thing. Has Bowling Green run much play action this year?
I can't even name. I mean,
okay.
Really,
how often do the Falcons run the ball? All the time.
Run first.
Where's play action? Are we just going to let Drew do a 7-step drop every single play and
Shotgun.
go to a drop down a check down every single play, or a 3 or a 5-step drop off out of the shotgun? If you're not going to run play action to make it dynamic, we saw an end around that got I think 38 yards. You don't try to run a play like that again. You're just going to use it once and not try it again at all during the game.
Just think of how much play action.
You could have run a fake jet sweep with R.J. Garcia.
Yeah.
And run a pass downfield off of that, but you don't. You just it worked. We're gonna put it in the back pocket. That stuff just doesn't make sense to me when they call so conservative in the big moments of the game. I just can't wrap my head around it as to why it's been like that through the first 5 weeks.
I know, and that's been actually. I'm really glad you brought that up, because that's a very big difference. I feel like with the Leffler offense and the George offense.
The Leffler offense was unpredictable.
Think of how much
good
play action we saw on Bazelak even just last year. I mean, it was an insane amount. People might say
with
too much.
How much we are running. Play action would be effective to a certain degree, but we haven't seen any of it. We can't say whether that's true or not because we haven't seen it.
Yeah, what really troubles me about that is, I hear that and I agree, but also, I mean, Lucas, how many snaps of football have you played in your lifetime?
Exactly, 0.
Tyler, how many snaps of football have you played in your lifetime?
Exactly.
0.
Exactly.
I've played 0 snaps of football in my lifetime.
But I have been able to watch and see what has worked and what hasn't worked, and I can tell you right now, what we're doing in the passing game is not working.
Well, right, and I'm
doesn't take someone to play football to know that.
I'm not discrediting our qualifications on it, but I'm saying, it's if we can put that together, obviously the staff is aware that that's a thing that works.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's...
Again, maybe this 5 weeks
So then why isn't it happening? Because, I mean, these are D1 coaching staff. I mean, Eddie George transformed a program at Tennessee State. I don't have any lack of faith in what he's doing. I don't have any lack of faith in his staff. Why is it not changing? That, to me, points a pretty... points an arrow in a direction. I feel, to me, I think the coaching staff feels limited in what they can do with the personnel they have.
And that very well may be true.
Yeah.
I maybe Drew is not comfortable turning his back to the defense. There's some quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers is one of them. Aaron Rodgers doesn't like to turn his back to the defense. They scheme the offense around that. If you ever watch Aaron Rodgers play, you'll notice that.
Can you do a snap count?
I'm not. No, not with this voice. If I had my full voice, maybe, Mr. Gruden. But there's certain quarterbacks that don't like to turn their backs. Yeah. That's a real thing. Maybe Drew's one of them. We don't know enough of that. Like you said, they know way more than we do. We're just talking about it. But there definitely is a change that needs to be made somewhere in the passing offense. Like I said, I think the rushing offense is coming along.
Oh, it's been good. I think that's been the one big positive part of the offense has been the rushing.
And I think that McMillan and Petaway have separated themselves.
Yes.
I think Markel Porter's the next closest, but I think that McMillan and Petaway are the clear 1 and 2 in that order right now in this season, and I think they have earned those positions. Petaway is still electric in the return game. 2 great returns against Ohio. Outside of that offensively, who's your number one wide receiver? We don't know yet. Is it Finn Hogan or RJ Garcia? I couldn't tell you. Who's our number one tight end? Is it Jaron Johnson or Jacob Harris? I couldn't tell you. Those are problems 5 weeks into a season that we do not have definitive answers. We can go off a depth chart, but based on results, we do not have definitive answers on those. That's a problem.
Yeah, there's too many questions that need to be answered. And again, if the Falcons make a bowl game, let alone win a bowl game, it's not a bad season. It's the first year.
No.
That's
a great season. You talking about win a bowl game?
Yeah.
We've
If
been
you
trying to
win
do
a bowl
that
game, that's a dang good season.
For how many years?
I just think, making it is the baseline that I know a lot of people would like to see.
But
and
see, this
there
is,
are questions.
This is the tough thing about Eddie in the program right now. When you get this much excitement against the program, that bar naturally gets raised.
Yeah.
Is it right for us to expect them to compete for a championship this year? Probably not.
But that's what they've been saying.
But that's what they've
saying
built up around this program.
Yeah.
Now you have to. You talk the talk, you got to walk the walk.
Yeah.
That's the problem. The program has put them in a position
because
right now.
I think all of us, and even people on the show, were like, last year was the year, which is that with that team, that veteran squad, obviously now you have a whole new coaching staff, a whole new
Here's
team.
the difference where some programs are. Ohio sells out their stadium against West Virginia, and they beat West Virginia. They won a championship last year. They're probably going to be in Detroit again this year.
Yeah.
Bowling Green gets close to selling out their stadium. We beat Liberty. 2 straight losses after that. Probably going to sell out Toledo. If you're going to have the excitement around the program, you need to keep the results going to keep that excitement around the program. That's the challenge that they have this season with a roster that, off the record, Eddie would probably admit is not the roster that he would ideally like to have because it was so late in the recruiting cycle, in the transfer portal cycle, that he had to put together one quickly. Naturally, next year's roster will probably be more of what he would like to have. But with what they're working with right now, that's just the tough challenge that the program's faced with.
And I think my last thought on that, too, is that this team inherently came into the season with a lot of expectation and, frankly, a lot of pressure because of the narrative surrounding him. I personally, I think people have a little bit too much tunnel vision about this team and what this hire means, because this hire isn't about Bowling Green having a killer 2025 season. It's a lot deeper than one season.
This week is the first week that I have not heard a question from a media member about the Eddie George effect or anything directly related to the energy around the program because of Eddie. It took us 5 weeks to get there.
Well, and I think the simple answer is that it just doesn't happen overnight.
Exactly.
We can be optimistic. The team can clearly, strive to. I mean, they were in that game. A couple things go different ways. I mean, that is a game that the Falcons, you play that, 10 times. Falcons, I think they win a couple of them. Genuinely, I think they might.
Yeah, I agree.
But at the end of the day,
it's the way sports are.
It's the way sports are. You came out with an L, and we're on to Toledo. So on that note, I'm going to let Eddie George talk about the bye week coming up and just the team moving forward here.
Is the week off coming at a good time for you guys?
I think it is. We got a couple guys that are banged up. It gives us a chance to heal up, to recalibrate, to look at the things that we've done, build on the positives, work on our weaknesses, and get better. Listen, it's too much football to be played right now to have long faces and have poor body language and to feel sorry for ourselves. Listen, when it gets harder, we get tougher. I mean, it's that simple. We got to get tougher. We got to come back to work, roll up our sleeves and figure it out. It's not going to be easy. Winning is not easy. Life is not easy. And these are the lessons that they have to understand. When you get punched in the mouth, you're going to have to respond. So the last 2 weeks, we got our asses handed to us. And guess what? We're going to have to learn how to respond. This is who we are. We can't run from it. We can't hide from it. We're going to meet it right squarely where it is, meet it face to face, and go toe to toe with it until we defeat it. That's where it is. And it comes down to us and how we handle it. And taking ownership again. Hey, I made the mistakes. What can I do to get better? I have to get better. So that's what it comes down to.
As you said, that's what it comes down to. Taking ownership, looking ahead, try to right the ship. Tyler, anything else you want to leave us off with?
I think that last clip is probably the best thing you could hear from Eddie George going forward. He acknowledges the problems they have. He acknowledges where the program is right now. He acknowledges where they are in the season. They have room to grow. They have work to do. They just have to go out and do it. And it's up to the players on the team, the coaches on the team, to get them ready and go out and execute and be able to what they were hoping to do, is make a run for Detroit. And there's a lot of season left to figure out what this team is going to be. This team's not in stone yet. We're only 5 weeks into the season. They have a bye week and then Toledo. And then after that, on paper, your biggest matchup is Buffalo, who has underwhelmed up to this point in the season. So there is a lot of room left for this Bowling Green team to capitalize on. They just need to go out and do it.
Kind of what I said before, I think this bye week is going to come at the absolute perfect time for this team, and I think we could look back a couple weeks and say this was just a low point in the season, low point for Pine, and we've been critical with them this week, but I think it's warranted much the way this week went. I will say, though, I love everything what Eddie George said there, similar to what Tyler said, but I also really appreciate how honest and transparent he is throughout that press conference with all the sound bites he played after a loss. Sometimes you see coaches that kind of just they'll say one thing to the team, say something to another, but he was very transparent and I think honest, especially with Pine and his 3 interceptions, and then there, talking about the bye week and trying to own mistakes and get better. So I actually really appreciate that with him, because this really was the first time I think we've seen a more emotional, irritated George after a loss than previous ones.
That was definitely the most emotional, more agitated emotion that I have seen out of him so far this season.
So I think those are all really, really good stuff for George. So
there's no condemnation on this team or this regime with a loss in 2 weeks, but they hold a chance to very much, establish, an early signature. Hey, this is what we're about. This is what we came here to do. All eyes on Toledo, man.
Yeah, and what's the best way you do that? You beat the Rockets at home.
More on that as we get close to that, but I think that's going to do it here for us for football for the day, after probably one of our longer football segments, but I think very warranted.
Yep.
Well, and, we got a bye week coming up next week, so could kind of make up for that
be a little
bit.
quieter next week on football for sure. We're closing in here on the end of the first hour of the show. And we're going to talk about men's soccer next. But before we talk about the on-field results, I want to talk about something that matters a little more off the field, just around this program. Cochrane Stadium, Bowling Green's home stadium, named for the legendary Mickey Cochrane. And Lucas, I'm going to let you just, kind of take us through the acknowledgement and, just everything going on with honoring him and, what he's being honored for, and just take it away.
Yeah, that was really cool. So I think people who don't know, but I think anyone surrounded by BJC Athletics do know. BJC Athletics Hall of Famer Mickey Cochrane was inducted to the OCSA Hall of Fame. That's one of the 6 Hall of Fames he's been inducted to. He's also been inducted in the United Soccer Coaches Hall of Fame, the MAC Hall of Fame, amongst the others. I can get the other 2 here in a second, but he's the architect and kind of founder of the men's soccer program, hence why the stadium's named after him, and you see a couple of his photos of him around the stadium. He was the first coach on the program's history. He stepped away after a handful of years to focus on becoming a teacher. And then he also was a big in founding the lacrosse program at this university as well, obviously not around anymore, but was also a huge figure in that as well. So a legendary figure, not just for the men's soccer program and obviously lacrosse, but for BJC Athletics and the Mid-American Conference as a whole. And taking it a step further, NCAA college soccer as a whole, he was a part of the committee that was on the first committee for selections for that first NCAA tournament long time ago. So he's really a godfather, not just for this program, but for college soccer as well. They did something really cool on Friday. Obviously, inducted in the OCSA Hall of Fame, so they gave him a plaque that he was able to show up at the game. They drove him and his wife around in a golf cart around kind of the center circle of midfield and drove him around kind of stands so people can kind of stamp and applaud him, kind of wave at him. Thought that was really cool. Our PA announcer at Cochrane Stadium kind of listed off all of his accomplishments he did throughout his time at Bowling Green. So that was really cool. For myself, I covered men's soccer team as a beat officially for 3 years. 3 of my 4 years, I've covered soccer my entire 4 years here at Bowling Green, and I've never met Mickey before. I've just heard of him. This guy to the right of me, Tyler Kavlitz, and I did a piece on Mickey about 2 years ago when he was inducted to another Hall of Fame. a couple years back. So finally get to see him in person for the first time was something that I always remember because I've covered this program for so long, so it's just really cool seeing the legendary figure that everyone builds this program around. I actually have a quote from Nichols that I wanted to say. He actually told us on the broadcast, Noah Sealy and I, before we went on. He said, quote, "This tradition stems from one person, and it's Mickey Cochrane. The first time I got here and started meeting people along the way, they would talk about Mickey. I've never heard people talk about another person like that and how great he was. So once I met him, I understood why. He's an amazing man. He has a huge legacy that he's left along down to the players that play today and the players in the past. And they know who he is, and they play in his honor." So I thought that was actually a really good soundbite that he gave us before the game because only 5 head coaches in the men's soccer program history, and Mickey was one of them, and Eric, obviously, Coach Nichols is the 5th one. So just seeing that, and honestly just being educated about that because I am only 22 years old. I was not around. Wasn't even a thought when Mickey was coaching. So being able to learn that was really, really cool. It was also alumni weekend, which was really, really cool. A couple of old players. They always have a tent outside of the east side of the stadium, kind of out over there. All a bunch of former players from previous years kind of go and gather, which was really cool. And they also are the 1995 MAC championship team that all came. Just got to see a bunch of those old players as well. That was a team that I can pull it up here. I wrote about it in my sidebar. They went 15-3-2, winning the MAC, and lost to Wisconsin in the first round of the NCAA tournament. So very successful season there. They got honored at halftime. Mickey was pregame. So seeing all that really was really cool. Again, as somebody that's just kind of covered the program for all these years, seeing all that kind of come together for one big night was really cool. Especially it being a MVC championship rematch from last year. There was a big stakes within the game, just a lot of excitement around that. And we're about to talk about the result, but even result aside, that night, I put about on my X. I'll remember that night just because of everything that was around it. Broadcasting the game was great. Writing about it was cool, but just everything around it was really, really cool, especially for my senior year. So, yeah, awesome night. I'm glad they honored Mickey.
It was a really special alignment of, a lot of just small pieces that come together to, make up the entire culture and, legacy of, this program. And, it's certainly because of, the giant himself.
Yep.
The program's just not what it is without him. And honoring that 1995 team at the same day, too. That's really cool, too. There's so much legacy there. You mentioned obviously lacrosse, not a varsity sport here at the university, but they still even have a competitive club program that is that's still that's a piece of his legacy too. Them being part of the dedication of that on-campus student green for the marching band and the club sports teams. That is a piece of his legacy too. It transcends
really cool.
just the soccer pitch and the sport.
It's really cool. It was just a really good night. All considered, I think, unless you're a Bowling Green fan with the result, but just everything, even when I pulled up to the stadium, just getting out of the car, it felt a different feel. There was a lot more people around there. I get there about 2 hours before every game. There was still a lot of people just kind of around the stadium, setting up the tent, setting up, the student section came over from volleyball at the Stroh Center and came over for a soccer game. They had that all set up, and, they kind of just had a lot of extra little things, little decorations around Cochrane Stadium, and there was a lot of people there, a lot of alums. So they made sure it was a big night. So that I really appreciated that aspect of it.
One of those kind of marquee nights that really show the times that Bowling Green, the community and the athletics programs transcend just the on-field results.
And shout
so
out
much
to Derek Vandermeer. He was there that night, and Athens the next day. So he works nonstop. So didn't want to miss it. So seeing important figures like that show up around everything is awesome. So
really inspiring in the direction of all the programs.
Mm-hmm.
Just the way that the community embraces pieces of their legacy and history like that. So we'll get back to the on-field results from the last week of the men's soccer team shortly, but we're going to step away for station identification and come back in and get right into some men's soccer talk for the second half of this show. So don't go anywhere, because you're still listening to the Zig Zone on WBGU 88.1 FM.
Northwest Ohio's community radio station is looking for new volunteers just like you. Join our team of enthusiastic volunteers that help make WBGU 88.1 FM a success. You can get involved in many ways, including on air, behind the scenes, or at promotional events in the local community. WBGU is Northwest Ohio's community radio station. Visit our social media pages for more information.
You are listening to Falcon Media Sports Network coverage on WBGU 88.1 FM in Bowling Green, Ohio.
We're back here. Welcome back to the second half of the Zig Zone, WBGU 88.1 FM and BG Falcon Media's show, keeping you up to date with everything going on in the world of Bowling Green Falcon athletics. I'm Holden Ruck, your host once again, here with Lucas Kleinmeyer and Tyler Kavlitz, all of the Falcon Media Sports Network. And, we just finished taking you through what was really a special night, honoring and acknowledging Titan of Bowling Green athletics, the architect of the soccer program, Mickey Cochrane. A pioneer. Unfortunately, the on-field result for the Falcons was a little bit less than you'd like. And before we go to that, I want to briefly touch on the game before that. Falcons take a 2-1 win over DePaul. At DePaul, is that right?
Yes, sir. Chicago.
And talk about that one for me briefly.
Yep. Big road win on the road. Painter broke his 4-game scoring drought at that time. Terry scored a worldie from distance. The goal that Painter scored was a really good build-up and good assist from Bodurov. Faced a lot of shots, a lot of pressure there from DePaul, and they got a big win on the road in a tough environment, on Tuesday at 3 p.m., kind of a really weird time for that, midweek as well, and they responded well. And DePaul's actually been a team that's, they've played to a couple of draws in previous years, and it's a really difficult place to play. They play on turf, and it's kind of a interesting venue and a long road trip for just a Tuesday, and they got a big road win, so credit to them.
Moving on from that.
I
mean, good momentum. You
Good
think
momentum.
tough environment, return to form, Painter getting another goal. Your two usual, the usual suspects scoring goals. And the stage of Friday night, you kind of, expect, and I'm sure you probably went into it thinking, hoping a little bit too. You're looking at an Evansville team that's not the same squad, losing several transfers to top programs after that Missouri Valley championship. Not what you want to see on the field at all.
No, I think. Well, first for Evansville, they did lose a lot of players from last year, at least a couple of really key players, but they definitely replaced them. They have a couple of international that came over. Andres Escudero was the first one that came to my mind. He scored the third goal. Couple of really good players, a couple of really good freshmen that have started every game this year. Chase Ricker being one of them that had 2 assists on that game as well. He was on the left wing. Really good squad, and I think people probably underestimated them because they have a lot of just unknown players and new players that just came in the year because they just lost so many from that championship team after making the first NCAA tournament in over 2 decades. Disappointing, I think, again, and I think post game from Nichols and Schaefer, you could definitely tell by their body language and the way they talked. They were disappointed, but it's a weird feeling because this is their second back-to-back 3-0 home loss, which is just shocking to me, and for a team that didn't lose at home at all last year. But their performance wasn't nowhere near as bad as Bellarmine. They still played well. They still had a lot of good chances. The storyline that at least Nichols told us post-game, and one that I understand, is moments. And I wrote about that on my sidebar, was Evansville just took advantage of their chances and their moments in the match, and Bowling Green didn't. And that can be the difference between a win and a loss in a game like soccer, where it could just be one goal in the game. That is the difference. One mistake, one bad pass, and it's the difference between a win or a loss. Credit to Evansville for taking advantage of their chances. The big thing that I thought in the game is set pieces. Bowling Green had a lot of corner kicks, a lot of free kicks, a lot of crosses in the box than I think usual, and especially in the second half. But I think they were just trying to dump balls in the box, down 2 goals at the time, just trying to get on the board. Martin Worschmidt, defender for Evansville, I need to know how many aerial duels he won that match. He was everywhere. And him and Nacho Garcia, our center backs, too, were all in the MVC tournament team last year through that Cinderella run, if you will. They were monstrous. They really, really were really good on all types of 50-50 balls in the air, corner kicks, set pieces, you name it. They won it in the air first. And then on the other side for Bowling Green, the first goal from Evansville came off a corner kick where the ball just kind of flighted through the entire box, flashed through the 6-yard box, and a finish on the back post. I understand where that could be defined as a moment, and every game is a moment, but to me, that's a mental error. It goes through the entire team, and it goes to the back post, and it's finished. You know, corner kicks, you want to be the first one to the ball, obviously. You don't want the ball to fly anywhere near the middle of the box. You know, you want to get it by the first post, and letting it go untouched through everybody and having it finished, to me, that's not more of a moment. That's just a mistake. And that could be a mistake on marking, a mistake, you know, some do man-to-man marking, some do zonal marking where you kind of just mark a zone. So, you know, it could have been that. It was a really good ball in from Ricker. So, I mean, give Evansville credit. Again, it was a really good placed ball. Even more, I think more disappointing was you're still just down a goal. Anthony Hernandez had a really, really good chance in the first half. If that goes in, the game is different. The game is different. So those are moments that they didn't capitalize on, chances that they didn't capitalize on that Nichols talks about. But conceding a second goal just a couple minutes before halftime is just a dagger. I mean, it really is. All the momentum goes in for Evansville, and now all of a sudden you have a mountain to climb in the second half. Instead of just down 1, you're down 2. And the second goal came from a counterattack that, again, was finished kind of on that back post. Again, and that one took a weird little deflection, a little bounce of the ball, but a goal's a goal. And again, they hit off a counterattack. So it's weird because I think just with everything that just went on in the game, it didn't, at least for me, didn't feel as disappointing as Bellarmine did. But at the same time, part of me is kind of questioning because how everything, there was so much writing on this game and so much emotion. And players, I mean, I understand MVC championship game was a long time ago and people don't want to talk about it and, you know, it would pass the past. But we've all played sports here before. If a team beat you the year before, you want to beat them. It doesn't matter if it was a championship game or before you want to get revenge. You want to get your get back at them. So I know the players on the team wanted to. I'm a little surprised by just the result. I'm surprised that wasn't the score isn't addictive of how the game went, but I'm surprised they didn't at least find a goal or two, or you know, anything like that in nature. So
I mean, it feels like, honest with the context of everything else happening, you know, in terms of the program on that night, the opponent. I mean, you find a way to get something. You know what I mean? I get what you're saying, and I think I agree about it, like feeling less bad than the Bellarmine result, because that, you know, this is a tough conference game, you know, Evansville, you know, well-coached team, you know, and I mean, we know, you know, not a slouch, went on a miraculous run last year.
But you should have more than that.
Yeah, it
should be more than that. Like, this isn't, I know there's a lot of new players on this team, but the new players that are playing are very experienced players. They're not true freshmen. The only freshmen that are playing off the bench is Tyson McCoy and Xavier Sims, and they're only getting a couple minutes. Every player on the team is a senior, a fifth year or grad student, or a, you know, Badurov Starty who's a sophomore. But he was also someone that played and started down the stretch. He's a very experienced player now at this point. He's seasoned at this point. I mean, with everything riding on that night and stuff, even you come back and fight for a draw, you know, if it was, you were down 2-0 at halftime and you came back and tied it 2-2, that's a win. That's a draw that can feel like a win in many ways. But now you're looking at, you start 0-1 in Missouri Valley Conference play. You only have 2 more of those MVC matches at home. You have 4 on the road, and the 2 on the road are Drake and Western Michigan. I know Western Michigan isn't doing good this year, but they've played a lot of really good ranked teams in non-conference play. Yeah, I think you're just left with a lot of questions, and I think just very inconsistent this year, just very up and down.
You kind of talked about it with the up and down part, and when I look at the roster and the stats and everything, the most concerning part to me is where your goals are coming from. Trace Terry, Bennett Painter. what else is there after that right now? There hasn't been any goal scoring outside of them. How concerning is that? And who do you think could be that next guy that could step up in that category and get some offense going for this team?
Well, that's actually, it is a big concern for me, because if you mark, I mean, everyone knows you're going to need to mark those two.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the man mark guys every game now because they know what they can do in the field. Noah Sealy and I actually talked about it in our stand-up and also talked about throughout the broadcast is who is that third guy that is going to step up and finally get on the box score with a goal. I mean, they have plenty of guys that got an assist this year, which is great. We said Rajko Bodurov, and I still think
because that's the name that popped in my mind.
It could still be Bodurov. He finally got his first start this past game, and he scored a couple big goals last year. I think he could be the guy, and if I had to give an answer, that probably is my answer. I think at this point, Andrew Schaefer is really your more assist guy. You know, he'll probably find the back end a couple goals, but he's taking set pieces, and he's probably the best crosser on the team, at least for my money. So you're going to look for him to be your primary assist guy, your chance creator, guy from the wing, and he's very confident on that left wing, and I don't think that's going to change at all. Anthony Hernandez on the right is not a box score guy. He's more with possession, with the ball. He's not going to let the box score goals and assists. He's kind of that crucial guy you need in the passage of play. That's just who he is. And you know, he's had really good moments. He almost scored twice this past game. And he will score eventually, but that's just not his game. He's not looked to score goals. So, you know, outside of that, you're really kind of looking around. Like I mentioned, Bodura finally got his first start, but Bitasic has been in that spot before. He's, in my opinion, is a more box-to-box midfielder guy, more of a holding mid, not more of an attacking, chance-creating midfielder. Could be wrong, but I haven't seen it so far this year. And then you just have a bunch of young guys on the bench. You know, Tyson McCoy, a young forward, Edin Ibrahimovic, who I'm personally very high on. Hell, he's only played a couple minutes this year. McCoy's played a little bit off the bench, but it hasn't been a lot of minutes. You know, those are forwards that I would like to see have more time and see what they can do. You know, Bradley Popple's a transfer they got over from Air Force, and he's a sophomore. You know, and I've liked what I saw for him before. He hasn't seen the field in the past couple of games. I think he could add something. He could add maybe a goal or something on the box where he could help out in the attacking phase, but we haven't seen him. I mean, it's for a reason. Obviously, I don't know what that is yet. But, you know, those are guys I can see. But I think at this point, it's got to be Bodurov. So,
looking ahead for them, you've got Northern Kentucky Tuesday. There's always things to take away from games, but I mean it's conference season. You
have to win. There's no two ways around. You've lost back-to-back games at home, shutout at home, 3-0 at home. You're 0-1 in conference play. You have to win. You have to. And Northern Kentucky is a solid Horizon League team. They're kind of up and down. You know, they go through stretches. They're in a big winless run right now, but that's a team that tied Bowling Green last year on the road when Bowling Green was nationally ranked. And that was the reason why they kind of fell out of the rankings after just 1 week. You know, Northern Kentucky is a very physical team. A lot of players are from the Cincinnati-Dayton area because there's no University of Cincinnati doesn't have a team, and Xavier doesn't recruit Ohio kids, so a lot of them kind of go to Northern Kentucky. So a lot of these guys played together either during high school or played together during the club level, so they're both very familiar with each other. So, you know, Northern Kentucky is going to be needing to win as well, and they're going to be one on the come on the road and get a big non-conference win. So you have to win. It's not conference, so yeah, it doesn't necessarily matter because it's not MVC play, but just for a confidence standpoint,
you got to right
going into Belmont, who's unbeaten so far this year afterwards, on the road in Nashville. You got to win. You got to just build some confidence, get some goals on the board, get back on track, back right. They did that with DePaul on Tuesday after lost to Bellarmine, so they could do it again, especially at home. You're not on the road this time. The question is, will they do it? You know, we'll see.
Yeah, Belmont 5-0-4 on the season. Not, like you said, not taking a loss. They'll have the chance to, you know, they'll play at Louisville this Tuesday before they meet the Falcons. So, you know, there's the potential for that. But I don't think that result affects anything for the Friday matchup either way. Yeah, it's kind of not do or die. The season's not over if you have a bad result at all.
Means no.
But you are getting dangerously close to a position where you have no momentum if they don't get, a good result Tuesday and, compete Friday, frankly.
Yeah, you just need to get back on track. You do. the big thing I want to see with, obviously, I want to see someone besides Terry and Painter on the score sheet. And I think Bedorf could be that guy. I just need to see somebody in the midfield really take the game by the scruff of the neck, get the ball at their feet and say, this is mine. I'm going to create the chance. I'm going to hit that line-breaking pass, that game-changing pass that's going to give Terry and Painter opportunity. They don't need 6 opportunities a game. They could just need 1, and they could score. They don't need a bunch of chances. But Evansville was the first time that I really kind of had flashbacks to a guy last year, Alberto Anaya, who was there this past weekend, with the fellow alums, where if he wasn't getting the ball, and he wasn't kind of in that half space between Terry and Painter with the holding mids, he would drop all the way back almost by the back line and just pick up the ball and say, I'm going to create something. I'm going to hit a long ball. I just get the ball at my feet. I'm going to make something happen. I have not seen that this year with anyone in the midfield. And I know some of those guys, that's not their duties. And Christensen and Ramos, that's not their jobs. They're holding mids. But Saavedra was originally the 10 this year. You brought him over. He was a big transfer. Now he's dropped back into kind of a holding mid spot as well, kind of off the bench guy. You have Batasic there, and now you have Bodurov there. And again, people have different playing styles. That might be, but I'm looking for someone in that midfield to just give some sort of consistency of hitting those line breaking passes and giving chances, because really the only one outside of that's creating is Schaefer, because Schaefer that's his natural spot. But again, the heart and the spine of your team in the middle, who's that guy that's going to just take the game, give him the ball and say, this is mine, I'm going to create something. I haven't seen that yet, so I'll be looking forward to see if it is that Bedorf, if he gets rewarded with another start on Tuesday, or if it's Batasic, or maybe it's Saavedra, who knows. But looking for it to be somebody to take up that role.
It's definitely a role that the Falcon faithful are hoping that somebody can step into soon, because just not starting in conference play the way you want to. Northern Kentucky will visit Cochrane Stadium on Tuesday for a 7 p.m. kickoff. Are we on the broadcast for that, Lucas?
You're looking at the 2 broadcasters right here.
Oh, the Lucas Tyler cast, really?
Men's soccer debut.
He got me on a men's soccer broadcast somehow.
Yeah, men's soccer broadcasting debut for him. So, yeah, 7
Surely
p.m.
you're getting a bingo soon, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, very soon. Yep, 7 p.m. WBG PBS. Noah Seeley, Kevin Hutchison will have written content. Henry Costco will have his cover videos. Daniel Reinauer will have social content. We'll have photos. We'll have everything. So it should be a fun slate for Tuesday.
Stay tuned for all that. I don't think, certainly early in conference play, but definitely I think feeling a little heat, feeling a little pressure if you're in the men's soccer program.
So. I think so, yeah.
I think with the expectations coming into the season as well, I mean, the expectations where this team competes for regular season and postseason championships, and it just has not seemed like the team has
gelled.
Played. It reminds me a lot of men's basketball last year, but with higher expectations. Men's basketball last
before
year,
the injuries hit.
Well, even after that team didn't gel until the final 2 weeks of the season.
That's right.
It was just a bunch of talent that on paper was great. They just didn't gel.
Yeah.
They didn't have the expectations men's soccer did, and I think that's the difference. It's a lot of talent right now. It just kind of feels like it's Terry, Painter, maybe Gio, and then what else you got? Yep. It's just they haven't gelled together yet.
Yep. They're still just looking to... Nicholas keeps repeating it. They've been on a journey, he said, with the team this year, and that's what they are. I mean, they might figure it out, and they might go on a run where they find that right 11, that right personnel in the midfield, really, to just really gel and look like what they did last year to kind of go on a run. But, looking at it from an expectation standpoint, you got to host a tournament game. I mean, you really don't want to go on the road in the Missouri Valley. You're going to go to Iowa. For Drake, you're going to go to Kalamazoo. You're going to go, UIC is good this year. Go to Chicago. You go far. So home field advantage is really, really tough. And it's not a neutral site. It's home field by seeding. So, you're only one in conference play. You only have 2 more of them at home. So
really getting into the thick of it. Stay tuned to BG Falcon Media for all the content coming out following the men's soccer team. Next up, I want to talk about the volleyball team, who I would argue, if today's women's soccer result, which we'll also talk about, hadn't happened, and maybe even considering it, I would argue probably had the best week of any of the big sports that we talked about. Opening MAC play, first MAC play for Coach Alex Del Piombo at the mantle of head coach, and they couldn't have done it in a much better fashion. 4-set win over the Ohio Bobcats, and then the following night, Friday night, a sweep over the Kent State Golden Flashes. Some real highlights. In the opening, or the first of those two matches, I should say, the Falcons hit their best hitting percentage, 0.333 on the season, including 0.56 hitting percentage in the fourth set, the ultimate set that clinched the match for the Falcons. And I don't think you can ask, your most efficient showing in your MAC opener, I think, is just, really inspiring to see. It just keeps the train rolling, keeps the confidence up. Standout performances from the usual suspect. Amanda Otten had her fourth double-double of the season against Ohio, 30 assists, 13 digs. Sydney Hernandez led the team with 18 digs. Those are the kinds of things we expect to see.
I think Hobbs is going to get a lot of credit for how she did this weekend, rightly so, but Amanda Otten was sensational, especially in the assist category.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing we've come to expect from her, I think. And so I think it's important to give her flowers where they're due, because I think she may be the player on this team that we just kind of expect the most from, because she's such a dynamic player, being that setter, but also, the size and ability to take points that she has. I mean,
I find it difficult just thinking of where this team could be without Auden and Hobson, with Lauren Hovey being out the past few games. Having Hobson there's been huge, because she's filled that void that would be left there over the past few games without Lauren Hovey. And when Hovey does come back, to have them together, with Hobson fully going now towards the end of the back end of the conference play especially, I mean, they're going to have a chance to make a run for it once again. And like you said, I do think we underrate Amanda Otten just a little bit. I think just because we just expect it out of her. But she is... I think it'd be tough to find an argument for someone that's a better setter in the MAC than her, because of how much she can do out of that position.
She's just consistent.
Yeah.
That's why she goes unnoticed, because every game...
And I think that's what she has improved from last year.
Yeah.
I think if you remember at the beginning of last year, which feels like forever ago, she was rocky to start the season. But she has been just solid all year long.
I think any season that ends in some kind of disappointment often points a pretty clear finger to what, where you need to right the ship. And I think early in last season, and even in the MAC tournament loss against Western Michigan, I feel like I watched a lot of volleyball where you could tell, the outside hitter, Amanda was still playing at a high level. The outside hitters were still playing good volleyball, but, the timing and, some of the chemistry. I remember a couple sequences, like with her and Jessica Andrews in that tournament game, that really just felt, they just weren't together. Neither of them necessarily doing bad things, but when you're not together, it's going to look like one of you is wrong. And, I remember seeing some, just weaker attacks get blocked or, dug under more easily just because the timing was off with those two. And I feel like in this early MAC slate, the team looks like it's firing on all cylinders, and that's without the absolute force that is Lauren
arguably
Hovey.
the best player in the MAC, or one of the top.
Last year's MAC player of the year.
So without her, but also having Ohio to Kent State to start at home, it's pretty good two opponents to start with. They're not the top class, but they took care of business. You only play who's in front of you. So.
But that's a good sign that team did take care of business, because sometimes you do have teams that are very talented that play down to other teams' levels.
They lost one set all weekend, right? 3 on Ohio.
I think one of their set wins was 25-9 over Kent State. It was just obliteration.
How many 5-set matches did we see last year?
I feel like it was a requirement.
So many.
For the match to go 2-5.
I feel like, it felt like every game it was decided.
You got to sign a waiver if you're going to play Bowling Green. We must make it go to 5 sets.
We even the NIVC tournament, when they got into those later games, they came back for a couple of those games, or they just always went to the last couple of points. We had
so many reverse sweeps last year, it felt like. Especially early in the year. Hey, another reverse sweep for BJC Volleyball. Nothing normal or nothing strange here. Like you said, it's been, and I think there's something to it that I think last year the team may have played down to other teams' levels just a little bit at times. I don't know if that was a Tomich thing. It could have just been a one-year thing. It doesn't feel like they're doing it this year, though. It feels like they are playing the same type of game, their game, every single time.
And when you're looking, again, when you're looking at a team that doesn't have Laura and Hovey playing, who, hopefully will be back in the lineup in short order, very optimism inspiring to still see that. Because, when you're missing one of those key players, arguably the face of the team, I would say.
I think she is the face. I think that's...
I don't think that's ridiculous.
Player of the year.
If you go, I always think, okay, who's the face for each of our sports that big athletic sports that we cover here? I think volleyball, I think Lauren Hovey.
Yeah. And anyway, playing even lower quality competition in the MAC without her, I would be, kind of understanding, frankly, if they played down more. But 25-17 win in the first set over Ohio. Then you drop one 25-22, but it's close. 25-15. 10 points. That's pretty convincing victory. And then 25-23, a close fourth set, but getting the win there. And then you look at the Kent State, not only sweeping, but 25-22, 25-9, 25-21. You've got two. 25-9 is kind of a blowout of a set. 25-15,
if you look at those
25-17, those are convincing.
Final two, you beat them 50-30. Yeah. 50-30 over the final two sets. That's insane.
Yeah.
And but that's the thing. It doesn't matter how good Kent State is. You beat an opponent like that is still an impressive feat for the team. And I think it's what the team needs after the tough non-conference where you lose a lot of those big matches. Although you play good, you lose a lot of them to those top-ranked teams. To be able to get back-to-back wins to be in conference play is huge in the long run because it gives you confidence up front. Whereas if they were to drop one of those, it just makes it a tougher mental feeling for them going forward.
I saw Sydney Hernandez's ESPN Plus postgame interview with former Falcon Media Sports member Samantha Momire. Shout out Samantha. She kind of just emphasized what the team's like. Yeah, we're so happy to be at the Stroh Center. We're so happy to be home, sleeping on our beds, come to the stadium.
They're on the road a ton.
They were on the road so much. And I know Andrew Smith and Ben Cork, our volleyball announcers and beat boards here, are happy that they're home too because 3 tournaments on the road to start the year. They were gone.
You were without your head coach for half of that, especially if they're actively coaching because of, like you said there. So just to have her back on the sidelines and her presence back at home just makes it easier on everyone.
It's so now I've had the privilege to travel with women's basketball in the winter. The difference between the home and away preparation is insane, and I can only imagine these student athletes and why they're so happy that they can sleep in their own beds and be here in a comfortable place and not be on the road for the whole season because I felt like they were on the road just for the entire month of September.
Getting into a little bit more statistics, looking at that Kent State match, Avery Hobson leading the way. Second double-double of the season for her, 11 kills, 11 digs. Getting that a double-double with digs, that feels like a huge contribution. I feel like, especially from your primary hitters, you don't always see Laura and Hovey, putting up the highest numbers in that stat. And she's a phenomenal player. But that's just a huge contribution, I think. You need to have players around your court being able to, be near the top in that. Obviously you're going to have a lot of digs from players like Sydney Hernandez, led with 13. But pacing pretty closely in that stat, I think is just such a valuable contribution.
And once you get Hovey back and you have Hobson as well firing on both sides, watch out because one thing for sure is Hovey is very consistent, and no matter if it's a good play or bad play, gets a point, gets the block, she's going to smile.
And
she'll smile.
Another really, I think, underappreciated, just kind of within the team contributor, Edita Waslachik, led the team in kills with her own career high of 12 against Kent State, and she and Hobson both hit above .3 for their hitting percentage.
And she's another one. If you can get Edita going, if she can get more comfortable in her role and really start to step up somewhere, and you kind of create a three-headed monster there when Hovey comes back, this team could be real dangerous.
Waslachik's just casually grown every year from freshman year, moving on the last couple of years.
I don't know that there's a ton more. You can look ahead at the MAC schedule for this team. You start off strong 2-0, great start to MAC play for Coach Del Piombo. You've got EMU in Ypsilanti. You got Central Michigan in Mount Pleasant. You got Toledo at Savage Arena are the next three. So everything we just said about travel, fortunately it's not as big as these tournaments. Going on a little road, and it's going to be definitely more of a test.
And I do think it benefits them, though, early on, because what were the three teams? Eastern, Central, and Toledo?
Mm-hmm.
Eastern 0-2, Central 0-2, Toledo 2-0. So you have a very easy start on paper to the conference schedule, and I think it, at least go 2-1 there. If you can go 3-0, huge for the team, because if the front end of it is easy, chances are the back end's going to be a little more loaded.
And speaking of that Sydney Hernandez interview that I did talk about, that she did with Samantha on ESPN Plus, she also talked about scouting, because they know the MAC and they know all these teams, are familiar with these teams and these players. So while they are going on the road again and they're going to have another road span, they're more familiar with the team, because it's a Mid-American Conference team and the players. It's not, you're not scouting Purdue and Kansas and Indiana, these teams that you haven't played before, and they're also just really, really good in a different class, really, sometimes. So, that's another big factor.
Also, this is just an interesting one I just saw looking at the standings. Usually takes a while for you to figure out who is what echelon in the MAC. Right now, you have 6 teams 2-0 and 6 teams 0-2. There is not a team 1-1 in this conference, so we kind of know who the top 6 are, who the bottom 6 are, unless something changes. Just interesting looking at that.
Well, and you do have to consider who's played who too. I mean, I think
you do.
Looking at that same thing, an outlier is.
I mean, Eastern's the only one 0-2 that has a winning record. They're 8-7 overall.
Western Michigan, the only.
Yeah.
Actually, Western Michigan and Ball State both have losing records.
Yep.
Western is 5-10, Ball State 6-8.
But I apologize. Akron also has a winning record. Akron 7-6.
But yeah, there's definitely. I mean, Ohio's not. They're 2-12. That's enough said.
Central, I mean, looking at that,
Central's 3-11. Buffalo's 3-8.
You mentioned Ball State, Western Michigan are 5-6, 6-8, 5-10 overall. Akron, Eastern Michigan 7-8. They're 7-6, 8-7. It seems like Miami, BG, Toledo, and NIU right now have separated themselves as the top 4 in the conference up to this point. If you look at their overall records, if you look at what they've done briefly as conference play has begun, it seems like those are the top 4 teams that everyone's going to be aiming to beat. So as long as Bowling Green can take care of their business for the bottom teams and snatch the wins against Toledo, NIU, Miami, they're going to be in a terrific spot.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting, too, because I was looking, I think for the foreseeable future, until they really fall off, Western Michigan is always going to be a name that I respect on paper. You look into their schedule, a comparable, difficult non-conference, the LMU Invitational in Los Angeles. They played number 16, at least at the time, number 16 USC, number 19 BYU.
Right.
Swept by both. That's tough. You're going to be losing a lot of those non-conference games. They also played Michigan State and Indiana. Tough.
That's why context
tough
matters.
competition.
I mean, you might have a losing record, but who did you really play? And that's what all these MAC teams try to do, because you don't really get to experience that, obviously, within conference play. So, let's go play these nationally ranked teams, these really good programs across the country, because that's the only way we're going to get better.
But you know what I think is a great measuring stick is Western Michigan's first 2 conference games are BG's next 2. They played Eastern Michigan and Central Michigan, winning 3-1 against Eastern at home, 3-2 against Central at home. So, this is a team that, by the non-conference, by the overall record, I think most would probably say are comparable to, a bit worse than Bowling Green. And against Eastern and Central Michigan's took care of business overall. So I think you're going at least 2-1 in the next 3. This little road trip. If you're the Falcons, I don't think you're in. Oh, would you be concerned if so and so territory at all with this team? Yeah, I think we know they're a resilient bunch. That resiliency is something that has lingered over from when Daniela Tomic was coaching, and I don't think that Alex Del Piombo has let up with that at all.
We've talked about his previous shows
so many times.
Wake up! You're gonna look up in November. And they're going to be one of the top seeds in the MAC, probably get a bye-week MAC tournament. The MAC tournament's here in Bowling Green already this year, so you already have home court advantage. I mean, this is a norm for this program. This is the standard that they've set for themselves. So I would be very surprised if you're not looking up with them as a top 4 team in the MAC, and I think that's even being generous. I mean, they're, I think, still one of the favorites this year.
Yeah,
no doubt.
I think that we talked about those top 4 right now: the NIU, Toledo, Bowling Green, Miami. I think Ball State and Western are still going to be interesting. Yes. I know those overall records in the non-conference.
I think Western especially, just because of the recent history with those two teams of constantly battling each other. I think both of those, there's a lot of players on those teams still that have been in those battles. I think both those teams going to play pretty tough against each other, wanting that just for the pride reasons.
And Ball State, too, played Purdue as well. Played Cincinnati in the non-conference, so familiar opponent there in terms of the coach. But, yeah, I think it's a really, it's going to be a year as competitive as ever.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that, the top and bottom of the MAC are, I think the MAC standings right now tell a pretty good story of, what we're to expect. So we'll definitely look forward, exciting road trip, especially culminating in, the Central Eastern. I'm expecting and certainly hoping to see wins for the program, because I think it would be a kind of surprising lapse for them to drop either of those games in Michigan. I'm really excited about that October 7th Toledo game. I think that's going to be a really, really exciting one, and probably the clearest test for a hot minute that this team gets.
Agreed.
So that'll be definitely one to look for. As always, bgfalconmedia.com, BG Falcon Media on YouTube and social platforms, Facebook, Twitter, X, etc. We'll have all the coverage going on with those games, so stay tuned for that. Last but certainly not least, after an impressive result today, Lucas, take us through the women's soccer game today, because, heck of a win.
First of all, big shout out to Henry Costco and Noah Seeley on the call today. I thought they did a really good job. To everybody, the whole crew that covered the game today. Central Michigan is not a good team. I'll just flat out say it. They have not won this season. I believe now they're out 0-8-2, 8 losses and 2 draws. 4-0 win. Just dominating from the start, really. Big storyline kind of thing. Emma Stransky, 6th goal of the year, 4th goal in the last 5 matches. She's kind of now separated herself as the big threat up top, kind of that main person that people are probably going to spotlight, kind of that star up top that we all thought she could be and turned out to be she is. Lizzie Bolnick getting her first 2 goals since her freshman year, since 2023 as 3rd year. So very, very big for her. 3rd goal, she chipped the Central Michigan goalkeeper from 40 yards out, which was an awesome goal. Henry Costco had a good call of that one. Good to see that. This was, I think, the big positive you can take away from this game, especially, is the offense really clicked. Should also mention Audrey Oliver scored a long-range laser. Michigan keeper kind of misjudged the ball and went in. Second half, they kind of just took their foot off the gas, kind of really tried to play possession, try to get the youngsters in, get some minutes in. Oliver got a goal, but the offense really unglued this game, and I think that's a really big thing, because this team is led by their defense, they're led by their back line, and they're led by Peyton O'Malley in goal. But this is actually the first game where it was already given the defense was probably going to hold Central Michigan off the board, just the nature of they didn't score a goal the first 7 games of the season. The offense took advantage of their chances and put more than just a goal or 2 on the board. Get 3 or 4, you take care against the teams you're supposed to take care of against. Now you move on to a 2-game road stand for the first time all season. They've played 8 home games this year, just compared to 3 road games. Got battle I-75 on Thursday at Toledo, and then you go to Eastern Michigan. Those 2 should be wins, at the very least should be results on the road. I think you get a win and draw success, but would not be surprised if they take 2 wins for them. 7 wins, 1 loss, 3 draws. Only 1 loss. That is the least amount of any MAC team so far this year. They are sitting 4th in the MAC, just based off of 8 points. Miami, Buffalo, and Western. Miami and Buffalo both have 9, so they're kind of tied for 2nd, and Western Michigan is up top with 10. That 1 draw did come against the Falcons, and the other 3 times were 3 wins. So big. I don't really have a whole lot of other things really to say. They kind of just really took care of business Sunday. They were off this week. Big week. They didn't play a match on Thursday, so came out, got a big victory, and then they can move on to a couple of road games.
Yeah, I know we can talk about, when competition and playing down to competition. That obviously didn't happen. But I feel the same way. And, like, you love a 4-0 win. You love getting more points in conference, keep the momentum up in a nice 4th spot right now with a decent amount of conference play done already. You know what I mean? Like, there's been a good amount. But, I mean, that Central team is...
Yeah. And the funny thing is they do have a couple points this year in back play. I mean, they got a good draw against Ball State, so... I mean, they are sitting on 2 points. They are tied for last with NIU, Akron, and Toledo. But again, you know, Eastern will be a good test. Eastern will be a decent test. But I think the way this team's playing this year and the goals that they have, you should be looking at 6 points at the minimum 4.
Yeah, I mean, I think you only stand... I think you only stand to see them hang around where they are or improve from what I've seen. Like, I feel like, you know, there's clearly, like, good squads at top. You know, Western Michigan, those Broncos are pesky in literally every sport. But even so, I think this team is just showing, you know, I think it's silencing doubts that may have been around last year.
Gosh.
Like, significantly.
Give credit to Chris Fox. I think we talked about this before. I mean, you start seeing that. Really, I think when you have a new coach that changes a lot, has a whole new coaching staff, a big new roster, new conference, you know, everything's new. You kind of give that first year as kind of like okay, let's see how it is, kind of experimental. You know, you get a pass for a lot of things. You really start to see the growth second year. This is just my opinion. Second year, I really think is when you start to see the growth, and you're seeing it immediately. So give him credit. I mean, 1 loss in 11 games, and it was to a really good Illinois team at the time. I mean, give him credit, man. I mean, really good. And again, it's been by that back line this year. So,
and I think that's huge for Chris Fox, because if he had a start similar to last year, he's a guy that could have been on a hot seat after this year, because of how last year went. But, you know, like you said, give him his credit off to this hot start. Now he's a guy you're looking to keep long-term, possibly. If he can keep this up, if he takes them all the way, you know, then that's a completely different conversation than you were having exactly a year before. And I think you just do see a difference in the roster and in how the team is playing offensively. At least to me, as somebody who's not a diehard soccer guy, it just feels like they're a little more aggressive this year. It feels like they trust the defense a little more, and they're being a little more aggressive in that way. It also just looks like he has more of his roster that he likes, and that makes sense. Second year, and you would expect it to continue third year, which would really be the year that the recruits as juniors, seniors in high school is looking at would finally be coming in.
This is they have one senior on this team. It's Emily Holler, who started today. This is still a young team, but still has a lot of experience. They might be youngs and sophomores and juniors, but they've played a lot of minutes.
Which that's a perfect scenario for this team to be this young, because you know, it's different now with the transfer portal, isn't it? That you have to, you know, you used to be able to say, like, well, you know, they're good going forward. Well, now you don't know for sure.
Now it's like, I can go get somebody.
You don't know if they're going to leave or not.
And they've been doing this whole MAC on being run to start the MAC play without Ella Kane, who's been one of the best transfers this year. She's had an injury. She'll be back shortly. But 2 wins and 2 draws to start MAC play. I mean, is that one of your best transfers?
Could you ask for much more?
Can't really.
Yeah.
The big thing is, and I have to wait to get a firm answer on this, is Taylor Green was injured towards the second half of last match, did not play this match. Christy Franson got the start at center back next to Gabby Lamparty. Got a shutout, played well for the most part. But
that'd be a huge loss,
that is, I mean, for my money, she's your best player. So, you know, like, that's huge long term. Gabby Lamparty might be your second best player. She's been awesome as center back as well. But, like, for a captain and for a leadership and just quality standpoint, that is huge down the stretch of the season.
And I think that's the biggest part of it. I think the on-field play is great, but you do have Lamparty there as well. If you lose her long term, you lose that captain on the field. Like, that leadership, you'll still have it on the bench, but on the field, it's just a little different. And it's something that you never want to lose. And you have seen teams affected from it when a player like that goes down and is out long term. So you just hope that she's not out long term, and you hope that the team continues to play at the level that they have been.
It's a presence and maturity that just, you know, having a captain on field, I mean, you just can't, you know, truly replace that exactly.
No.
I mean, any captain in any sport is chosen for a reason.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I mean, you got to just hope for that team's sake, hope that she can make that return. Because, I think, it's a team that can continue succeeding, but, just, always complicates it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And again, they have played a lot of home games. They still have a good half and half home and away games left, but the teams they host at home, Miami, that's the team that's 1 point above them right now. That's probably going to be a big one. Buffalo on the road, we talked about last week. That's going to be a huge game as well. They still have a couple really big games. Eastern's probably going to be a good test, but I think you should be very, very happy with where this team is at this point in the season.
Yeah, I think I don't think you have a choice but to be happy with where the team's at. The one loss to Illinois, that's it. That's it. Heck of a start for a second year too, which sometimes they're still figuring things out, but they're on a really good spot, I think, and pretty exciting game coming up Thursday with Toledo. So
TOL.
What's our I'm not gonna finish that one. Instinct almost kicked over. I was like, no.
Yeah, I was testing it.
Good restraint.
I was testing
Good restraint.
Yeah, full coverage. Well, not full coverage. BCSN does have the broadcast to that game, but recap will be provided by Noah Seeley, myself included. Noah and I will have written coverage. Henry Costco will have coverage for video, and Artie Abrego will have socials for you, along with photo content as well. So we'll be sending up a full crew to the Rockets.
As always, check out bgfalconmedia.com as well as BG Falcon Media on other platforms to stay up to date with all the content coming out for all of BGSU sports, but especially this women's soccer team who is on a very hot run right now. Ordinarily, around this time, I've thrown it away for a little break so you guys can think over a question, but our little wrap-up discussion is going to be a little bit different, and I'm really glad that Tyler said what he said because he actually...
I don't know what I said.
He struck
I said a lot.
We'll get to it. He struck very close to what I wanted to talk about.
This could be good or bad.
Yeah.
What Tyler said was how important this success is in year two, because in a world where this team's not playing so successfully, Chris Fox could, be seeing himself on a little bit of a hot seat.
Yeah.
I don't have a specific question. This isn't like about the Falcons. I want to talk about hot seats.
Okay.
Because I feel like in the sports world, especially on the gridiron, there are plenty of names that are getting some flack. Especially, I think college football in particular this season has been just fascinating in terms of like the hot seat discourse. I know we were talking about it a little bit in our group chat.
That's like the first thing
and
that
the
came to
Penn
my mind.
State game really brings it to my mind. What makes obviously losing games makes a seat hot, but
I think the biggest factor for a hot seat is I think it depends on the expectations of the university or of the team. So like if you're going to Penn State, you need to win playoff games. You need to be contending for a national title if you have the roster does.
You're trying to compete against Ohio State and Michigan.
Yeah, that as well.
Well, okay, so yes, but therein lies... here's a better question then. How many... different universities have different benchmarks for what makes a seat hot. How many of them are realistic? Because my thing... can you say... does James Franklin have a hot seat at Penn State?
No.
I think he might. I don't think he should.
If Penn State fires him, donors are going to stop. There's no way, as long as they make the playoffs, which they will, they're not going to miss, even if they get 2 losses. If Penn State fires James Franklin, it'd be bad. It'd be ugly in terms of the money. It all comes down to money.
Who are the top programs in the country, just generally, historically? I'm not going to use blue blood.
Ohio State,
Bama, Michigan, Texas, Alabama, Texas,
USC.
And we're talking all time. We're not just talking Notre Dame. Historically, some Nebraska success. But when you've got to compete against Ohio State and Michigan, and now, there's some fresh life from those Pac-12 teams. Washington's scrappy, USC's scrappy, UCLA we're not going to talk about, but
Illinois, Indiana.
3 out of those 4 Pac-12 teams that joined are, competitive teams. Illinois
UCLA.
and Indiana are only on the up. Iowa manages to hang around somehow.
Without offense,
every couple
I don't know
of years.
how they do it.
You brought hot seats. Luke Fickell, Wisconsin. He's probably toast after this year. Just so you know.
And
that is not the Cincinnati kid in my heart that is upset that he just went peace out after.
I think with the way the Big Ten, how everyone around them has gotten better, he's definitely on the hot seat.
Yeah.
I think a hot seat is ungrounded. Why would you make?
Look at Ryan Day. Before he won the national title, everyone wanted his head
Because he lost to Michigan.
because he lost to Michigan.
And he's
That's
still
all
not
he
again
did
this year, but
was
we'll see.
lost to Michigan.
Right,
And
but
then he won the
That's
national
all he did
and
was
then
lost
he
to
won.
Michigan.
But that's Ohio State though. Ohio State doesn't care if you win. They just want you to beat Michigan.
But see, that's what I'm saying. It is the difference
Yeah.
in what university you're at. Because if you are at Penn State, I think it's less about beating Ohio State and Michigan, of more just winning big games and being able to compete for a national title. At Ohio State, it's competing for a national title and beating Michigan. At Michigan, it's the same thing. But then if you go to somewhere like Wisconsin, if they could get in a playoff, that'd be great. But Wisconsin, you're really just looking to be a top team in the Big Ten. You're not looking at national championship aspirations realistically every year. So it just varies depending on what university you're at. I think it really does.
But why should any university? I mean, I understand change is sometimes just like necessary at face value. If you can only guarantee at best a lateral hire,
Yeah.
I think you need to put some ice on the
I
hot
think
seat a
some
little
of
bit.
them are like, if they really believe they have someone internally that could be doing a better job, they make a move. But if you don't, and there is no one available, like you said, like, now things will change now that coaches are starting to be released and there's some out there. Like, maybe a university goes, okay, that grass could be greener on the other side if we pull him over here. But if there, like you said, if there's not any of that, you take a huge risk and just altering, especially college athletics, altering the path of your program because you lose recruits.
I mean, Penn State as an environment, tier 1.
Yeah.
As a program, all time, like tier
Tier
1.5 to 2.
Tier 2.
Yeah, I mean, they're a step below the Ohio States,
Yeah.
Alabama's, but I mean, they're there.
They're not a
up
blue
there.
blood, but they're probably in that group of 5, just outside of a blue blood.
And so then, like, James Franklin, a lot of success, Big Ten championships.
What is the record? He's like
Playoff appearances.
5-24 against like top 10 teams all time or
Can't
something
handle
like that.
the ranked teams. But
Yeah.
and also, how many of those are Ohio State?
A lot of them.
How many of those are Michigan? Less, but several.
Yeah.
So when you are fated and doomed to play Ohio
I think he
State.
has one win against Ohio State in like 10 years.
Well, and now tell me this though: how much better too does this Big Ten record get? I mean, not that he was already like winning most of his games and losing to Ohio State most years.
But see, that's the knock. That's why he's on the hot seat, is because at that program, like we said, you are nearly a blue blood. You are expected to win big games. He can't win big games. That's why he's on the hot seat. Now, like if we switch Luke Fickell and James Franklin, well, James Franklin would be safe at Wisconsin. Nobody would even bat an eye about him going anywhere. But if you move Luke Fickell over to Penn State, he would have been fired 5 years ago.
Now here's this though too. In the current era, I don't know that I mean, a 10-win Penn State team, if your only losses are to a top 5 Oregon and a top 5 Ohio State, you're in contention for a spot in the playoff. I don't know that you're getting there, but you very well can.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw 3 lost teams get left out from the SEC. But, I mean, 10-2 with losses to top-notch opponents, that still gets you in. I think if we were still in a 4-team playoff format and James Franklin's still losing these games, loses this Oregon game with the realignment, I mean, I think you're having a different discussion.
Now,
you can get a
here's the thing,
favorable
though.
draw. I don't know that.
If you lose first round, it's a completely different story then.
Well, that's true, but I mean, I look at last year. You know, I don't know how much stock you put in an SMU team, but Penn State beat SMU and Boise State.
Here's a challenge. Can you name one player on that SMU team? Because I can't.
Kevin Jennings is their quarterback.
Doesn't sound real.
That sounds like a
Kevin Jennings.
placeholder name.
Threw one of the picks of all time in that game in Happy Valley, but either way,
Can you name another one other than Kevin Jennings?
I didn't study SMU. No, I cannot.
Exactly.
But I don't know. I mean, teams like do you think that was a very good SMU team? Personally, I don't.
A good SMU team.
Well,
yeah,
good by
but
SMU standards, but do you think that was like
no,
a really?
No.
I mean,
this is
they
why
got to the playoff.
hot take. The playoffs should be 8 teams. If you look at the standings every year, the cutoff is always at the 8th team. 9 through 12, they're never going to compete. They're never going to compete for the national championship. They're just there to be there.
And I think, too, didn't all 4 of the top seeds get upset? Because Georgia lost
but that was more of where...
The way the seeding works and the buys and
Yeah.
the big... the ACC being weak.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of factors at play. I just think the culture in fan bases of calling for the heads and hot seats is misdirected.
It is.
What if they fired Ryan Day after the Michigan game?
I love that like 3-month stretch of it went from everybody wanted him gone
To like the best run in college football history.
he's the great, like he's up there with Urban and all
No,
that
that
stuff.
was my favorite one.
Like,
He did
yeah.
go from being we want him fired to saying that he is like Mount Rushmore of Ohio State
like,
football coach.
yeah,
I'm like,
to
how
be
do you go for
fired
that?
to like,
that?
oh, he's top 4 Ohio State football coach ever. Like, okay, got it.
I mean, as somebody who grew up watching the Buckeyes my whole life in the state of Ohio, like, they're one of the most ridiculous and intense fan bases out there.
Yeah.
Easily. So, I mean, I guess that's just what comes with
High expectations.
Comes with the
the
territory.
job. But,
Yeah.
well, I don't know. Thoughts on that? We'll see. We'll see if more intriguing. I would like to revisit this if we get to see more, hot seats boil over.
Oh, there will be.
We'll keep eyes on that as the season. I'd like to come back to this one for sure, but that's going to wrap it up here for us from the Zig Zone. Tyler Kavelitz, Lucas Kleinmeyer, myself, Holden Ruck. As always, to stay tuned with any of the BG Athletics going on in the next week and in any week. Check out bgfalconmedia.com as well as BG Falcon Media on YouTube and BG Falcon Media on other social platforms, Facebook, Twitter, X, where we will keep you up to date with broadcasts, coverage, photos, and everything you could ask for to keep up with BG Athletics. So from us here in the Coolin Center studio, that's going to do it. I'm Holden Ruck saying have a good evening. I Ziggy.